This is Paul Glumaz once again, and welcome to General Welfare Presents. Um, we are entering quite a situation now. Um, we're coming to a breakdown crisis in the world financial situation, in the global strategic situation, and we have a pandemic of a virulent flu-like, very contagious flu-like coronavirus, and this is forcing the question on a very fundamental level of why nations exist in the first place. Why do we have nations in the first place? Of course, the international bankers don't really care for nations. The British Empire doesn't care for nations. The City of London financial system doesn't care for nations. The people that are in our government don't really care for nations, except to the degree to which they can bleed the population. But they don't care about maintaining the infrastructure or maintaining the health infrastructure or anything like that. As long as they're getting paid their salaries, they don't care. As long as this is the mentality, free trade, cheap labor, whatever. But what about the nation? What about the ability to defend the nation by having a production capability that you can support your military through your own production, or support your own food through your own agriculture, or support anything? Well, no, we can't allow that. We have to look for the cheapest place to produce food and undermine and bankrupt the places which are not so cheap. We have to find the cheapest slave laborers to produce the products that we consume, and we undermine our own infrastructure, and we don't develop the part of the world which is producing very cheaply. So now we no longer have a nation with a full capability of economic sovereignty, but rather we have a global supply chain which is very vulnerable politically. Oh, your country isn't behaving well. We're gonna boycott your. We're gonna cut you off from this and from that and from there. You better surrender to our international rules-based order if you don't do that. So this is globalization. This is GATT. This is the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs. This is the World Trade Organization. This is NAFTA. The rules-based system. What is the rules-based system? Your government and your nation has to obey the rules. Well, who creates the rules? We created the rules. Who are we? Well, we're not the government. We're the international elite. We created the rules, and you got to follow the rules. All your nation. Well, why do nations exist? Because you need the nation to mobilize for war if you are in trouble. You need the nation to mobilize to deal with natural disasters. You need the nation to mobilize, for instance, in the coronavirus situation. Now, China's demonstrating right now in China that they are doing that. They're actually mobilizing the in-depth capabilities of the nation, the science, the technology, the infrastructure, to contain the virus, slow it down, and treat the people. And they have a massive operation. They can do that because they're a nation, and they can organize their population to act in the national interest. Okay, the United States used to be able to do that. The question is, as the coronavirus gets worse, can the nation mobilize to deal with it? And what does it mean to mobilize? Well, what Trump is doing is he's activating something called the 1950 Defense Production Act. In a few months after his inauguration, he issued an executive order under the National Defense Production Act of 1950 to begin restructuring the U.S. economy so that we could produce the steel, we could produce the aluminum, we could produce the things that you need under a defense, under the issue of national defense, but it doesn't just apply to national defense. Now they're issuing decrees, or they're moving to do the same for mass production of the goods you're going to need to deal with the coronavirus. These are the masks, the gloves, whatever on a mass scale that doesn't exist right now. So the Defense Production Act is a foot in the door for an emergency mobilization of the resources and the economy to be able to deal with these kind of situations. So this is an inclination of this president to break with the rules-based order from an economic standpoint, but it's not yet. There's not yet that ability to fully break with the financial, because to break with the financial thing, you have to set up an independent internal credit system, like a national bank under Hamilton, or the Greenbacks under Lincoln, or the Reconstruction Finance Corporation under FDR to finance the development. Because you're not going to get the international bankers financing it, okay? You might get the local bankers involved in these projects, but you're not going to get the international financial people involved. That's not what they're there for. They're there to make a profit on the carcass of a declining physical economy, and on speculation, on derivatives, and so forth and so on. And it's not unsurprising that the two big billionaire candidates, Steyer and Bloomberg, all made their money in the financial speculative realm, and learning and designing these automatic computer programs and selling them, in the case of Bloomberg, so market speculators. So all the speculators out there who are making money are using Bloomberg's programs, or Bloomberg's facility, or Bloomberg whatever, as part of their making of money. How do they make the money? Through essentially robbing the financial system, robbing the taxpayer through the cost of passing on the cost of the speculation onto the currency and onto the population, and then the government and the taxing have to pick up the tab. Essentially, that's how it works. In other words, if you have financial speculation and you want to trade, the central banks have to intervene to protect to protect the currencies. Well, then that's profit for the financial speculators at the expense of the nation. So that's how they've been doing it. Okay, so that's where Bloomberg comes from, and that's where Steyer comes from. Now, Steyer is the big financier for the failed campaign of our governor, Jay Inslee. And when he fell apart, then Steyer stepped in. And Steyer has gotten out of the campaign. He stopped his campaign. Bloomberg, they say, put in $700 billion. It's probably more like $1 billion in these ads that everyone saw. Nobody could escape these kind of, get the job done. Bloomberg, the boss, and Trump, the bully. That was the message. Bloomberg, the boss; Trump, the bully. Does that make any sense to you? What's the difference between a bully and a boss? I don't know, but one is the boss and the other is the bully. So he's being a bully to a bully. It's totally weird. I mean, his whole campaign message was strange. Everybody has seen these campaign ads, and he dropped out because he didn't do very well on Super Tuesday. But these are the billionaires that want to cut off credit to all industry and just go with green jobs, green programs, wind, solar, and whatever. They want to return us to peasantry. And he's running for president to take out Trump. And so, to stop Bernie Sanders, what do? The machinery of Obama's machinery, the whole machinery apparatus, decides to go over to Sleepy, as Trump calls him, Sleepy Joe, Creepy Joe, and we call him Creepy Joe. Trump is nice; he calls him Sleepy Joe, and made him, kind of the anti-Sanders, Bernie Sanders. And so you're looking at this guy, and he's asked a question, and he doesn't answer the question. He goes off into some unrelated area, and you're wondering what's going on with this guy. And then he's got, I'm running for senator. Hi, I'm Joe Biden. I'm running for senator. And you're looking at the guy and say, wait a second, what's going on with this guy? Is he all there? And so everybody's wondering. Everybody sees this stuff, and they're wondering: is he all there? Is he really all there? And he's now the running neck and neck with Sanders for all the delegates. Of course, he's going to get all the super delegates because the machinery doesn't want Sanders. The machinery doesn't like Sanders. Sanders is not part of the machinery. He never was part of the machinery. So you got this guy who's looking like he's going into, dementia, looking like he might be the Democratic candidate. And you got a 78-year-old, rabidly green, anti-development guy who claims to be a socialist, revolutionary of some kind. And he's got the young people all excited, but they don't have a clue as to what the consequences are of whatever he's promoting. And you have the rest of society, which is a little more like, okay, if this guy does what he says he wants to do, we're not going to have a country. And then so you have to ask yourself, what happened to the Democratic Party? Well, I'll tell you what happened to the Democratic Party. It got Obama'd. The Obama disease took over the Democratic Party, and the Obama disease is really very bad. It destroyed the Democratic Party. So there is no core commitment to the population or to the working people or to anything like that. The Obama disease destroyed the Democratic Party. That is why the LaRouche movement went after Obama so hard, because those people who refused to fight Obama, there's only one person really that was running for office, who actually fought the Obama crowd, and that was Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii. But so this Obama disease took over the Democratic Party, and it's a disease. It's not really, it doesn't have a policy. It's all about image. It's all about posturing. It's all about identity politics. It's popular culture, only much more degraded than the popular culture, which is degraded enough. And so you have to ask yourself, what's going to happen here? So, as we move forward into the next 7.5 months or 8 months of the presidential race, it's going to get very weird. It already is very weird. And there's going to be every effort to double down and provoke things in the population. But the real issue right now is that this machinery is collapsing. And the question is, can this collapsing machinery disrupt the process to such a degree that President Trump will not be able to use the executive powers of the presidency to carry out when the financial system collapses, to carry out the wholesale reorganization of our internal financial system. Will the president be able to work out a new system with the other nations, with Russia, China, India, Japan, and so forth? That's the unspoken question. And the president's signs of using the Production Defense Act and the potential of an emergency mobilization of the population for dealing with the coronavirus is a step in the direction of an architecture and a new credit system in the U.S. All of that can be done. It's a package deal. The whole thing has to be done as a whole, and it can only be done from the standpoint of the United States if the president of the United States is clear, understands it, and understands how to time his intervention with the systemic breakdown of the financial system. That's really what it's all about. And if that can be done, then we might have a nation at the end of next year, or at the end of this year. We might have a nation at the end of this year. And yes, Trump will be reelected unless something else happens, like an assassination or something. But he will be reelected. At this point, it doesn't look like this machinery has the support of the population. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You think people are going to go out cheering and having big rallies for Joe Biden? You know, and what happens to Biden when he gets into a debate with Donald Trump? Is he going to go to sleep? You know, is he going to go off message into something else and be ridiculed by Donald Trump in front of everybody? They probably won't. He probably will not be the candidate. So who will be the candidate? It doesn't really matter. Whoever they're not. They don't want Sanders. Sanders would be a disaster in and of himself. But they don't want Sanders because he's not part of their team. So this is going to be a question of whether Donald Trump is going to have the means to actually do what has to be done when the time comes to do it. And that's where we are. And anything else is really what this is all about. You may be thinking of other things, but this is what it's all about. But he has the State Department and other elements of his government are running amok like crazy. They're demonizing China. They're attacking Russia. They're telling Turkey, we have your back to go into Syria and start World War III. You know, all this weird stuff is going on. But it's not. But then Trump isn't going along with that. Trump is not in sync with all of that. So it's still, we haven't resolved anything. Trump has escaped from the impeachment process, but we has not consolidated. And everything depends on that. Everything depends on whether Trump, one, can consolidate, two, can act properly, three, will the population actually rally around him. Normally in a situation like this, the other party rallies with the president in a time of crisis. A real crisis, not you know, even in 9/11 there was a rallying around the president. They kind of abused that. But this is different. And now, will the Democrats rally around Trump in the crisis? No, they will try to sabotage everything that Trump will try to do to defend the nation. They've lost it. They've lost it completely. They've been Obama'd all the way. And who is Obama? He's the British. He's part of the British establishment. He's part of the British intelligence. He was the British implant in the U.S. who represented the worst aspects of the British system, you know, and he ran things the way, you know, he ran things in a very brutal sort of way, you know. It was like a gangster, you know. He was working closely with the drug cartels to give them the franchise of running drugs in the United States. This is what Fast and Furious was about. It was about this kind of of criminal view, all, covered up by this facade that he was running. But behind the facade was this fear, this terror, that you would be out of a job, or you'd be assassinated, or you would be whatever. I remember when he started working with the Republicans against the policies of the Afro-Black Congressional Caucus. Some of these congressional members, like Rangel and what's her name, Maxine Waters and Conyers, they fought Obama, and Obama came down on them hard and threatened them. I know this. And they broke. They broke. They believed in Obama, and then they broke. And now you see Maxine Waters acting like she's she was broken. Hillary Clinton was broken. A lot of other people were broken. They went along. They gave up. Obama was the British Empire running on top of the United States, and people who had different issues and were opposed to a lot of the policies, they got broken. Dennis Kucinich was broken. Maria Cantwell was broken. They opposed. Maria Cantwell wanted to put a Glass-Steagall amendment on the Dodd-Frank bill. She was broken. She was threatened. Dennis Kucinich was threatened. His life was probably threatened. And so that's the way Obama ran it. And he broke the Democratic Party. He broke the leadership of the Democratic. So there's nothing there but broken people who have no reason to who have a spiritual death, basically. These people have had a spiritual death. Even, I don't know if Bill Clinton has had a spiritual death, but these people used to be different than what they were before. And they have a spiritual death. It's like the famous quote from Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which is, I'm 38 years old, and if I want to live a long time and I don't stand up and I'm fearful of death, then I will live those remaining years just as dead as I would be if I was, and this is the whole point of the way the Obama apparatus worked, and that's how they're doing. That's what they did with LaRouche. But we stood up. Mike Billington, he stood up. This guy Roger Stone, he's standing up. So when you don't buckle in under those kind of pressures, you don't give in, then you have spiritual strength. You can continue on, even though you may not live, even though you may be assassinated, even though you may spend the rest of your life in prison. You have spiritual strength. And this president isn't buckling under. He's not buckling under to the system. And that's why he has support. Because people can see a spiritual strength in him. He's not buckling under to that system. In fact, we're going to bury the system. We have to bury the system. It's evil. It'll kill off the human species if we don't. So this is what we have to do. The situation in Europe is terrible. The situation in France is terrible. The situation in Germany is even worse. The situation in Spain is terrible. The situation in Italy has some hope, but they got hit very hard with the coronavirus. And so we're entering this period where the nation has to be an instrument to defend the people against the international bankers, against the coronavirus. It has to be a vehicle, an instrument. And if you don't have a nation and the nation is not there for the nation, for its people, you're not going to survive. It's not a matter of maybe down the line. This is the period that we're in now. This is the period that will open the door for a new paradigm. This is where we are. And I'm very hopeful that that we can get through this period, and that the work that I've been doing for 46 years with the LaRouche movement and many others has found uh, has taken root in many places. Even though there's a blackout on LaRouche, even though he has not yet been exonerated, what Trump is doing now in examining a lot of the people that are in prison who were unjustly tried and starting the process of pardoning them or any commuting their sentences, whatever, is very indicative of a process of restoring justice, just the beginning of it. And so this is also the LaRouche case. The LaRouche case is absolutely crucial in this respect because his exoneration, even posthumously, is the key to being able to discuss policy. There is no policy being discussed. The Democrats aren't discussing policy. Trump is not fully discussing policy because there isn't that environment to be able to do that, where people are the president can't. President has to have something to go off against. You know, there has to be a dialogue in the population. There isn't a dialogue. There's nothing. The media is nothing. It's just totally disruptive to any cognitive. It's all cognitively dissonant. There's no conceptual. It's either attacking this or attacking that or whatever, but there is no conceptual discussion going on in the media at all. And these conservatives are going all after, you know, they're going socialism. It's like they've crawled back into the hole of McCarthy and the Cold War. Like they've gone back to the 50s, you know, and they're nuts. You know, yes, it's socialism, but that's not the issue. So it's a crazy situation. You know, to sum it up, the weirdest thing about this election is that the Democrats are not running against Donald Trump. They're running against Vladimir Putin, whom they claim owns Donald Trump. It's so weird. And that's what they're running against. We're running against Vladimir Putin. Like, he has nothing to do with what's going on in the U.S. in that respect.
Common stock investments have helped to make our country prosperous and powerful. Owning a share in American industry is like owning a share in the future of our nation. But remember, John Q, there is a risk as well as an advantage in owning any kind of property. So get the facts before you put your money to work.